What's good, good people? I'm going to tell you about another story about Kobe Bryant that none of us had ever heard before that had recently come out, and it was put out by a pretty credible source. We'll talk about it right after the bumper. What's good, good people of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all other social medias? I am Jeff Lightsy Jr. with the Black Boss channel. You see it right there in victory formation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload every single day. And we come to you live right here, 6 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to check us out every weekday, 6 p.m. Eastern. So there is this incredible story that was put out by The Athletic about Kobe Bryant, and it includes messages, and it comes straight from the source's mouth, and that is Jeanie Buss. Jeanie Buss, for the first time ever, is revealing that her and Kobe Bryant were in tandem to create a co-ed league that would feature Gianna Bryant, Kobe's daughter. And this was obviously something that would have come years down the line because Gianna was just, a very young lady and still had to go through college and high school and all this stuff. But they were preparing for the future to have Gianna participate in a co-ed league. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from the Athletics article about the co-ed league that Jeanie Buss and Kobe Bryant were putting together. Let's look at it. Let's dive into it. This is on the Lakers Daily, but this is via The Athletic. It says, quote, "I had started talking to Kobe because the way his late daughter Gianna was devouring basketball. It wasn't going to be enough for her to be a champion on a college team," Buss told The Athletic. "She was going to want a bigger challenge, something that had never been done. Now, whether would have been, she want to play in the NBA. Now, back in the day, Ann Myers, when signed with the Indiana Pacers, and Nancy Lieberman when she played with the USBL, a men's pro league. What I was talking to Kobe about was like a co-ed team. We've got the G League, we've got the WNBA, we got the NBA. Why not a co-ed league? Quote, "There's nothing that would influence more change than to physically watch a man and a woman in a game solving a problem, working together to overcome a defense in order to score. And like seeing men and women working together, I'll probably bring it up again. But Gianna was so inspiring because she was like Kobe. She would process information, then she would need more and more. She was like, okay, I did that. Now give me more challenges." That was Kobe. He just wanted more and more and more. That's why he was such a killer on the court. He just kept refining his game, learning more moves, dissecting opponents, teams before we played. He knew what all their moves were going to be, like relentless. That's the heart of a champion, right? So that is a story that I never heard before. That is a story most of you probably have never heard before. That is a bombshell Jeanie Buss dropped on The Athletic in that interview, because a co-ed league is something that would have changed the game. I mean, a co-ed league, even her bringing it up, it still sounds unimaginable because it almost doesn't make sense, but it's like it would have been so historic and right on brand, right on code with Kobe Bryant. Because everything Kobe Bryant did was almost historic and just kind of different, right? Like everything he did was very, very different. How meticulous he was about the game of basketball was different, right? Like even the greatest of great players weren't as detail oriented and meticulous about the game as like a Kobe Bryant. Now, we saw in The Last Dance, Michael Jordan was pretty like that. Like Michael Jordan was very, very serious, very, very hard on teammates, very, very particular about what he did and how he played the game. But outside of MJ, you got Kobe, and that's it. As far as guys who don't mess around, this is more than just a game to them. And so Kobe creating a co-ed league is very, very out of the box, out of the ordinary, even for some of the, smartest people in the world. That just didn't seem imaginable. Like, that doesn't seem realistic, right? To have a co-ed basketball league, to play it at a professional level, because they were talking about outside of college. We read it together. The Jeanie quote said it was going to take more than just being a college basketball champion for her. It was going to take more than just being a WNBA champion for Gianna, because she was made in the image of her father. So that is very, very different. And it's the latest in a string of stories since the unfortunate passing of Kobe and Gianna and the other members on that helicopter back in January of 2020. It's the latest in a bunch of stories that have come out about Kobe that is right on brand. And some of them were just kind of out of the water, right? Like, I'm not going to acknowledge the guy who said, Kobe only told him why he changed his number from 8 to 24 and didn't even tell his wife. I'm not going to acknowledge that kind of foolishness. But the other kind of really cool things that have come out and that make a lot of sense and that sounds like right on brand with Kobe Bryant, since he's passed away. One of the biggest things that came out, since Kobe passed away was that he was going to leave Nike. He was going to leave Nike and start his own shoe company. He was going to leave Nike and start his own shoe company that was player oriented. And we've seen since his death that his wife canceled basically the relationship with Kobe Bryant and the Nike brand, right? Like, there's not supposed to be any more Kobe Bryant Nikes ever created because she ended the deal. And part of her going into ending that deal, since he's passed away, was the fact that Kobe was planning to leave Nike and start his own player-led shoe company. I'm trying to read you the article to bring you. Okay, so here's the series of tweets. Here's the series of tweets from Shervin Peshkavar. I don't want to butcher his name too much, but this is just one of the other stories that came out since Kobe Bryant's death about, some of the plans he had, before his untimely passing. This is I've done the story on this before, so I'm just going to read this quickly and then move on to some of the other things that has come out since he's died. It says, I met with Kobe Bryant in late December 2019. Kobe wasn't happy with Nike and was going to leave it in 2020. Kobe was going to start Mamba, a shoe company owned by players. He passed away weeks later. What he was about to do in business was going to eclipse his sports career. So think about this. Okay, so we've got this right here from a credible source, a guy who knew Kobe, and he ends up showing like pictures and prototype images and things like that from what he says was going to take place. Like, here's, these were the designs my team did to show him that day, an independent Mamba shoe company. Here's calendar details. There were witnesses to the meetings, Kobe's plans, like Gina Ford, who manages Usain Bolt. So, like, here's the pictures. Here's the calendar. You know what I mean? Here's the prototype models of the shoe, what they would have been, what they would have did. So, look, so that would have been groundbreaking in the shoe industry business, right? So, Kobe would have had a groundbreaking shoe, a shoe owned by players. Would have just been super groundbreaking, super different from what Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, Puma, just really different than what they're doing. So he was going to do that, right? And now he has this co-ed league, which would have shook up basketball. Like, it would just, because even like we're dealing with a lot of stuff as far as like the transgender and whether, people that were born boys that now are girls, they're fighting with that in high school and school system. So this would have given them an outlet to without going through any courts or whatever. It would have given them an outlet. It would have had, the top girls, women in the country go against males and see how they stack up. Maybe not NBA level male competition, but really good basketball players who maybe didn't make it to the NBA, but still want to have a career in basketball. Like, it would have raised a lot of questions. Like, it would have just created something like Kobe's mind and some of these deals and some of these things we talk about, a co-ed basketball league and a freaking shoe owned by the players. Like, how would that have worked? How would that have looked? Like, he was going to open us up to things that just a lot of people don't even think about. Things that just most retired NBA Hall of Famers wouldn't even bother with. Right? Like, name your favorite Hall of Fame NBA player. And he's not doing this, right? He's not starting co-ed basketball leagues or even having conversations about them. He's not, creating shoe companies that are player empowerment shoe companies. They're breaking away from the Nikes, the Adidas, the Under Armours, the Pumas to create a player-owned shoe company. Like, your favorite Hall of Fame basketball retired NBA player isn't doing that. He's not writing, best-selling books, children's books on top of that. Not like best-selling autobiographies, right? Like, not just best-selling NBA strategy books, not just best-selling like coaches talk kind of books or gossip kind of books or look what went down in the Lakers locker room for 20-year kind of books, right? Like exposés on how terrible the Lakers are or whatever, right? Like no, children's books to empower and specifically books for, that really aim towards empowering women, right? Like we have a lot of feminists out here that aren't putting in the work for women, whether it's in the game of basketball or in the sport of life, that Kobe Bryant was doing. So, he just thought outside the box, not creating, he created a short that won an Oscar, right? Like Kobe did everything that just didn't seem possible. And anything that would box him into the stereotypical jock or the stereotypical retired NBA player or the stereotypical, 100 millionaire or billionaire or whatever, he did something else. He did something else to top it. He did something else to really dang, you can't get much outside the box than that, right? Like you can't get much more outside of the box than a co-ed basketball league, right? Like you can't get much more outside the box than that. And because you're like, man, Kobe had this driving passion, like this desire of basketball, especially when he's in the NBA, like you would think he would maybe get into broadcasting like Charles Barkley or Shaq, or maybe get, into the front office like his former agent and buddy Rob Pelinka or something. And he's like, oh man, to hell with that. Like, nah, when I'm done with the NBA, I'm done with the NBA. The only aspect I would have seen Kobe in potentially was I think he would have, if the Buss family were ever just silly enough to sell the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the most prized possessions in all of sports, not just in the NBA, but in all of sports, I think Kobe would have tried to been on a ownership group to acquire the Lakers if they would have ever come for sale. Outside of that, he had really no interest in NBA basketball. The man got involved with the sports academy and created the Mamba Sports Academy simply because he wanted his daughter to have the best training. His daughter said, I want to be a beast on a basketball court, and I want to get trained by you, and I want to be coached by you. And he made Gianna it's like, are you sure this is what you want to do? Because we're not going to half-ass this. Like, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to invest my time, my resources to make sure you are the best that you can possibly be. And if you give me your time, your blood, sweat, and tears on that court, we'll make you into the best woman basketball player. We'll make you into the best basketball player that you can possibly be, period. And that's exactly what was taking place. That's exactly what was taking place. Some of the other things that Kobe kind of had ready that came out after his untimely passing was that he had $2.2 billion in assets. Now, I think a lot of us knew Kobe Bryant. He made a ton of money. He played 20 years in the NBA. His career earnings, I'm going to look up Kobe Bryant's career earnings. Kobe Bryant career earnings, NBA. How much money did Kobe Bryant? So Kobe Bryant this is a big old number. This is from Sports Track. So they track all the contracts in the NBA, current and former. They have a database just full of all the contracts taking place in the NBA. I just did a simple Google search, Kobe Bryant's career earnings NBA. And this is the number that they came up with. His last year playing, he made $25 million. And this is the number right here, $312,307 is what Kobe Bryant made during his NBA career. So think about that. Over $320 million. That's a lot of money. It's a whole lot of money to make during the course of an NBA career. But what did I just tell you? What did I just tell you right before we looked up his career earnings? I said that Kobe Bryant had his assets when he passed away in 2020 were valued at $2.2 billion. Kobe Bryant was triple, over triple, like 4, 5, 6 times the amount that he made in his career in the NBA. He had, 4, 5, 6 times the 323 million is just an unfathomable number. But by the time he passed away, 4 years later, he had over $2 billion in assets. What does that mean? That means he made smart investments, and he did a lot to set up his family for the future. Not just his family, his family's family. He'll never have to pick up a basketball, ever. He'll never have to pick up a basketball. And not just because, and he didn't blow through his money. He didn't blow through his money. We were never talking about Kobe Bryant being broke or having to get certain style payments to keep, to keep money flowing in. He had $2 billion in assets. That's just incredible. The other things that came out after Kobe's unfortunate passing was that obviously that he wanted to continue writing his books. He's had a couple of books that come out since his unfortunate passing. Like I said, his books were geared towards children. And not just geared towards children, were geared towards making yourself better, being the best you that you could be as a child. And that is a lesson that couldn't come from a better person than Kobe Bryant. Like think about this. Kobe, like a lot of people forget, because Kobe is one of the best players in NBA history, a lot of people think that he was just like this phenom. Like he was like LeBron, or you know what I mean? Or like LeBron, or just one of these great, just like, okay, we know you're going to be great. You're always great. See, Kobe wasn't like that. Now, he was a great a great prospect, right? Like he was a great basketball player in high school, but he didn't go in the top 10 of his draft. He wasn't LeBron. Like LeBron he's had the expectations and like exceeded them, right? Like it's just like, okay. Or Kareem, right? It was like, oh, Kareem, he's the best player ever, and he ends up being the best player ever. LeBron is like, oh, he's the best player ever, and he ends up being like the best player ever, right? But Kobe was just, he was a similar size as all the NBA guys. He went 13th overall. He actually got traded. The team that drafted him thought he wasn't, thought he was worth trading for Vlade Divac. Traded him to the Lakers for Vlade Divac, right? They thought a European center was better than Kobe Bryant at coming out of high school, which, it is what it is. Once again, he wasn't that kind of phenom. And he got everything that he ever dreamed of in the NBA because he outworked the next man. Now, he was supremely talented, right? Like, we're not going to act like he just wasn't, like, incredibly talented. He was still 17 years old, drafted as the number 13 overall pick in the NBA draft, right? So there's only 12 players that they felt like were, at the time, better than him at 17 years old. But he worked for every single thing that he got in the NBA. That's without question. His hard work, his dedication is of folklore, of legend. How, he tells people to show up to work out at 5 a.m. They come in at 5 and he's dripping sweat because he's been there since 3, right? And then you get a workout in, and then you rest for a little bit and get a second workout in while Kobe's on his 3rd or 4th, right? And so that's why he spent so much time and cared so much about spending time with his family, because he spent so much time away from his family perfecting his craft and being the best basketball player he could be. So to hear this story, another just amazing story, it just makes me sad because we saw all that we needed to see of Kobe Bryant as a basketball player. He accomplished every single thing he wanted to accomplish on the basketball court. Like there's literally nothing. There's nothing in the sport of basketball that Kobe could have done that he didn't do. Especially at the professional level. I guess if he went to college and played, and drafted number 1 overall and won a college championship or something, like maybe that's it. But we're talking about a 5-time NBA champion, a league MVP, held the All-Star Game MVP trophy, is named after him, 17, 18-time All-Star, 20 years in the NBA, over 320 million career earnings in the NBA, just did it all. And so that's why he was so comfortable with himself walking away from the game. When he was done, he didn't really go to NBA games anyway. Now, he had a daughter that was just as invested and loved the game that he would pull up to some NBA games because Gianna was into NBA, and he would pull up to a ton of WNBA games, a major advocate of the WNBA. But to see that he was on the verge of creating a co-ed league, what I'm really curious about is if Jeanie Buss picks up this baton and decides to go through with it. I don't believe she will. But if she decides to go through and create that co-ed league, I would be interested to see if it works. We've seen other people create basketball leagues and they create a ton of buzz, a ton of energy, a ton of interest. Most notably, Ice Cube and the Big Three. Shout out to Ice Cube. Shout out to the Big Three. It's one of the best things smoking on TV right now, especially during the summer when NBA basketball is gone. You can get basketball all year with some of your favorite retired NBA players. Nate Robinson, Joe Johnson, Steven Jackson's a head coach, but he played for a long time. Just a bunch of Katino Mobley, still really good basketball players. Now, obviously, they're older and they're not in the NBA, but they can hoop. They can still hoop. And so I'm just curious to see if somebody picks up that co-ed basketball league baton. I don't believe they will, because I believe it would take a special person to make something like that work, a special group of people, and the combination of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna Bryant would have made that work. Is there someone else out there that can do something like that and make it work? I'm not sure. I'm not. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can follow Victory Formation on Instagram at VF Sports Show. We post content all the time. And for my Facebook people, Jeff Lightsy Sports is where all my content goes on Facebook. Jeff Lightsy Sports. Hit the like button over there. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're here every weekday, 6 p.m. Eastern, right on the dot. You can catch us right here on the Black Boss Channel. Thank you guys so much. I will see you next time. For tuning in. Peace.